The Dreamcast debuted with some outstanding features and incredible games, and was said to represent Sega's return to form. Instead, the Dreamcast ended up being Sega's final home console, resulting in a $400 million net loss for the business. The Dreamcast was Sega's fifth and final home console and was released in 1999 in North America and Europe after debuting in Japan in 1998. Though it didn't last long enough to compete with the PS2 and Xbox, the Dreamcast was the first console of the 6th generation, which also produced the PS2, Xbox, and GameCube. Nowadays, the Dreamcast is praised for being innovative because it gave gamers a genuine arcade experience at home. The Dreamcast featured the cult classic Shenmue as well as some other memorable games like Crazy Taxi, Jet Set Radio, and Soul Calibur. The Dreamcast was the first console with a built-in modem to connect it to the internet, and it also supported online play. Despite its strengths, the Dreamcast was never popular. With only 9 million units sold, it was a commercial failure for Sega. In less than 3 years after it was introduced, the Dreamcast was discontinued. There were a number of reasons why the Dreamcast failed, but none was more important than Sega. The main cause of the Dreamcast's failure to receive the recognition it deserved was poor management choices. One of Sega's many errors was making the Dreamcast's distinction from its other home hardware releases extremely difficult to understand. The Sega Genesis, the Sega CD, the Sega 32X, the Sega Saturn, and then the Dreamcast were all released by Sega between 1989 and 1999. This left gamers perplexed as to the purpose of each Sega product. Were they separate consoles or accessories, and what distinguished them from the other consoles releasing at the time? The Sega CD and the Sega 32X are among the worst video game consoles ever made, and each release after the Sega Genesis was also subpar. Most gamers now blame Sega for having poor game libraries, poor marketing, and a lack of distinctive features, particularly after the PS1 and Nintendo 64, which were both excellent consoles. Due to Sega's history of commercial failures, gamers were hesitant to purchase the Dreamcast when it first hit the market. It's unfortunate given that the Dreamcast wasn't a bad console, but because it didn't stand a chance against the competition due to its lack of identity as a result of Sega's poor choices. As mentioned earlier, the Dreamcast had some fantastic games and it wasn't lacking in fun titles. The issue is that at a time when players were looking for more from their games, many Dreamcast titles provided mediocre experiences. For instance, the PlayStation 1 included titles like Metal Gear Solid, Resident Evil, and Spider-Man. These games delivered compelling narratives and unique gameplay, giving players more than the Dreamcast collection of games could. Before the Dreamcast even went on sale in North America, Sony announced the PS2, and of course anticipation for it quickly grew. With superior hardware, deeper games, and the unique ability to play DVDs, the PS2 was simply just better in every way. People were eager to learn more about the PS2, and when given the option of waiting until the PS2 launched next year versus purchasing a Dreamcast today, gamers were content to wait. With over 155 million units sold, the PS2 is still the best-selling console of all time. Despite the Dreamcast having a head start, the PS2 led the 6th console generation and was regarded as the one to own and outperform. Soon after the PS2's release and the announcements of the Xbox and GameCube, the Dreamcast was largely forgotten by gamers. Although the Dreamcast might have been a big hit with audiences all over the world if circumstances had been different. But the failure of the Dreamcast was a product of its lost identity, lack of intuitive and in-depth games, as well as Sega's dwindling reputation as a hardware manufacturer against Sony's rising reputation. In the end, the Dreamcast is a golden example of a console that failed but didn't deserve to.